Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Season 7, Episode 3 of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. And joining us now, the man who thinks he's Ric Flair, Bobby Blaze.
I'm a little bit all stoved up to be Ric Flair. I feel like I've been in a plane crash there, Jeremy.
Woo!
I'll be able to kick out, baby. I'll kick out on two. Because, we ended the show last week. It was like we was going through a plane crash with this internet system I've got out here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and it's about as cold as a horse heart out here today. And I'll tell you, I can feel it, man, in my bones. It's a hurting, but we're going to get through it as long as this internet holds up.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how a state as large as yours still tries to run their internet service on tin cans and string, but whatever.
Yeah, I know. And I see, sometimes when I'm having to log back on and off, connecting, there's a lot of people in this area that have Windstream and Spectrum. That's the only two. And I hear the people bitching about Spectrum as much as I do Windstream. And that's our choices right now. And I've been with this company for a while. I'm sticking with them as far as I know. I get a good, price when it's up and running.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's like the thing is, so, here in Modesto, we're an hour from San Francisco, an hour from Sacramento. There's not a lot of, we're damn near as flat as anything you can imagine. Not quite as bad as Oklahoma, but headed that way. We don't get snow here. So really, I don't have any of the issues that people in the Virginias and, there in Kentucky run into. But I do know when I talk to other people from outside of, this area here or like a major capital city in another state, your story isn't that different than anybody else's I've heard. Like I've even talked to like Nate from Wideman, and his internet's shit as well,
Yeah, I don't know what he uses up there. I think he uses Suddenlink. That's out West Virginia, Charleston area. He probably gets Suddenlink.
Yeah, it could
I see
be.
their commercials all the time. So, and yeah, I imagine it's the same. He's back in the hills there because he's outside Charleston. So. I don't know, man. Hey, it's just good to be here. In fact, let's celebrate, man.
Yeah.
We got some birthdays. I was going to throw some birthdays at you. My brother said, hey, tell Jeremy he is right. And I was like, right. He's a professor. He's always fucking right. What are you talking about? He said he was right about Betty White being older than sliced bread, man. And today's her birthday. She's 99 years old, man.
Holy smokes.
Yes, happy birthday, Betty White. I wanted to put that out there to you. I don't know how sliced bread is, but we know Betty White's 99.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple more I was going to throw out at you that I think you would appreciate on these birthdays. Probably one of your favorites, most iconic voices of all time, if not the most famous, turned 90 today, James Earl Jones.
Oh, yes. A great voice, but also a great voice attached to some great genre characters. The voice of Darth Vader. And we just lost the physical body of Darth Vader a few weeks ago in David Prowse. And, he played Thulsa Doom in Conan the Barbarian, and he gives this just blood-curdling speech where he's like, now we'll show them why they fear the night. Now we'll show them why they're afraid of the dark. And I fucking love that scene, because I think that's where he shoots the snake on the bow.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Yeah. Good recall on that. Yeah. A couple people that's no longer with us, but I think, actually, I'm sorry, Michelle Obama's with us still.
Yep.
Today's her birthday. But I had two that I thought that were iconic. One being Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time. And the other being, I thought you'd appreciate this one, Eartha Kitt.
Wow.
We call her.
Yeah.
There you go, man. Right on. Damn. You busy later on? All right. No, so anyway, that's just some birthdays for January the 17th. We're recording this. When you get this on Tuesday, it'll be someone else's birthday by then.
Yeah.
But anyway, thought we'd bring that up just kind of. And you told me this, and I just see this. I don't know how you feel about it. We talked off air for a brief moment there. Phil Spector passed away today. I don't even know how old he was, but I had to check to see because you said, yeah, he did pass away in prison. We was talking about what a nutty fucking character he was. Everyone talks about iconic music producer for sure, but he must just been a really fucking nutty. I said to you, he pulled a gun on the Ramones, and you came back with the Ronnie Spector. What, he kept her in a closet for a year, you said.
Yeah.
I guess she outlived him.
Yeah. Well, he murdered that girl, fucking shot her right in the face.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name right now, but.
I saw it earlier too, and we should have remembered her name, but everyone's talking about him being the. So some people put her picture up there, you know. On
that's
social media's. The young lady it was that he killed, but let's see here. Let's see. I might have her name right here. Actually, he was 81, and the girl's name was. I know people out there saying Bobby. I know it, and I will look at it real quick here. Lana Clarkson.
Yeah,
Lana Clarkson was her name. So he was known for waving guns in people's faces.
Yeah,
but
he looked like the kind of guy the first time he would have pulled a gun on somebody should have beat him to death because.
Yeah. Well, it looked like he kind of was beat to death.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of.
He's rough looking.
Yeah. So COVID killed Phil Spector. Okay. Did you know I've been keeping track of a couple deaths? Now I'm not a person who believes in karma or reincarnation or the afterlife for that matter, but sometimes I do like to see where it just looks like happenstance and fate just bitch slap somebody out of nowhere. So Phil Spector died of COVID-19. Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, died of COVID-19. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. Back in the 70s, there was a guy who murdered like 30 kids in Houston. He had 2 teenage accomplices, one of which ended up shooting him to death. But the other accomplice died of COVID-19 here recently as well. So, for as much shit as you've caused COVID-19, I got to give you a couple pats on the back here.
Well, I'm a kind of a karma guy. I think, you got to put it out there when it comes back to you, so I try to put the good karma out there whenever I can, man,
Well, yeah, I'm not saying.
I want to hit that lottery, so I would.
Yeah. I'm not saying go be a dick, yeah.
Girl, here's the money, honey. I want that karma, I want good karma.
Yeah.
But, fuck, yeah. Talking about all these, we might as well get back into the episode way back when I was talking about the fuck, kill, marry the serial killers I had in mind. have to reapproach that there again. But anyway, I know the white men can't jump. Tim likes to ask me those
fuck, marry, kills.
FKM, and he'll throw out some doozies sometimes, but it's pretty fun to talk about, I guess. I guess you could still say that stuff. I don't know. Fuck, someone sent me something about that song Chuck Berry sang about my ding-a-ling. He said that thing would be barred or banned now. And he goes, but you can talk about rape and murder in your songs on the radio, but you probably couldn't sing about my ding-a-ling, And I said, yeah. I said, I think you're right, man. Probably right. Some of the stuff you can get by with. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird the stuff. Yeah, it's weird the stuff that gets censored. And you know what? I do it to myself sometimes, like where I'm talking. And I'll think, fuck, should I even say that? And then the next sentence out of my mouth is some horrific thing that, is going to offend everybody. And I didn't even pause,
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, you know what? We got to pick up. We left off last week. We went with J.J. Dinner. Damn, I'm not even hungry. J.J. Dillon introduced us to the territory. Trying to say, and the territory, of course, was JCP and the Carolinas, basically. And the star this week is, as we talked about last week, was Ric Flair, and that's who we'll be discussing on this week's episode. Hopefully, the internet stays up better than the plane that he crashed in did. We'll start there, I think, is what we talked about.
Yep.
Tell us about the date when that took place and who was on board, was kind of brief over that. And I swear to you, last week we was going off the air, it sounded like in my headphones, we was just going through like just a bunch of brush and trees and stuff. I was getting all this weird static, and I was like, Jeremy, you there? And finally it was just clicked off, and I texted you right away. I said, sound like we ended in a fucking plane crash.
Yeah.
You put LOL,
Well,
it really did on my end.
Yeah. Oh, I got a couple comments from people too. They're like, way to go out last week. And I'm like, well, couldn't have chosen a better time, I guess,
Exactly. I thought you'd planned it. And I was like, yeah, no. Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
So the
Ric
date
Flair
was
walked away from the plane crash.
Yeah. The date was October 4th, 1975. Flair was flying with, let's see, I don't have the pilot's name in front of me. Johnny Valentine was on this flight, yep. Mr. Wrestling, Bob Bruggers, and David Crockett.
David Crockett.
Yeah, not the one from the Alamo. But, Johnny Valentine
No.
Johnny Valentine was paralyzed in this. The pilot was killed, and everybody else came out pretty bad. And, Ric Flair's spine was broken in 3 places, and he was told he would never be able to wrestle again. So, he didn't listen to that shit for a minute, apparently, because
That's right.
8 months later, a very different Ric Flair came back to wrestling.
Yes. In his book, he stated that the office was giving him a check for like $200 a week at that time. Is all he was getting. He'd go by, I think, on Tuesdays, whatever day. And as we discussed, I think George Scott was booking then, we talked about, and he had a back brace on. Flair did when he went to the office on one of those Tuesdays. I don't know if he went every Tuesday or every couple of weeks, I think. But anyway, he had went a few weeks. I don't think he'd been in a brace, maybe 4 or 6 weeks, something like that. And George said, he said, what are you thinking? Get that thing off right now. He said, you'll get too used to it, and your back will just atrophy. You'll never come back, and you won't wrestle if you don't fucking take that thing off. And Flair said he immediately just like took it off and fucking didn't look back. So that was some good advice. Because right there he went against doctor's orders too. He went what I don't know what George Scott knew except for that his muscles were going to not recover properly with that brace on.
Yeah.
And so he took his brace off. I think it was like 4 or 6 weeks afterwards. Like you said, 8 months later, man, he came back and he started off interfering in some matches, I think. We talked about that before he started a program for Wooooo. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's
we talked about last week. Okay.
Yeah. Because I guess within a year and a half, his feud with Wooooo kicked back in, and
right.
So they got a little time to warm him back up. I'm sure, you can't just throw a guy in that shape right back into the ring. You got to give him some walking around time, and But, Flair was a 300-pound power brawler going into that fight.
Absolutely.
And he came out as a slimmed down, more technical, a technical wrestler, basically. I mean, he still had some filthy moves, but his style was very much different at that point.
Absolutely. And you brought up the fact, if you remember, Austin Idol, the same situation. He was a big, muscular body, powerlifting build.
Yep.
And that plane wreck was the same year as you brought up last week's episode. But, Flair, just took his weight off and got down to like that really nice physique that he had. He kept for years, But, he started back after that plane crash in 76. He was going out to the ring. And then they picked back up with the Wooooo. I think he ended up wrestling and beating him. If my notes were right, we're on January 31st of 1976. Well, a little bit over, not quite, a little bit over, right at a year, I guess, year and a half later, like you said, 18 months there, he was back into the full swing of things. So that's pretty damn impressive, man, for someone to survive that. And also they say, he'd never wrestle again. He proved him wrong. He's 71 and a half years old now. I just saw him on the other day, on this deal with that Kevin Hart does. I was telling you about beforehand. There's a little comedy spit that he does. Is something dropping. What I tell you, dropping balls or something. Cold as balls.
Cold as balls. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're sitting in the ice, like at a stadium, and big old, like you see, the NFL players, some of the major league players sitting in those big old ice tubs full of recovering after a game. And Flair gets all the way fucking down in it, man. And they have a pretty little conversation there. And it's just pretty cool that he's talking about being 71 and some of the shit he's done. And he, Kevin Hart sells for him, of course. And pretty cool stuff. Just something funny to watch. Again, it's called Cold as Balls. I'm sure someone will. And, of course, when I come across that, Jeremy, just throwing it out there, we're just kind of going off the cuff on this one here. The drip because he got out of the tub, and he's dripping, of course, but he's doing a strut and woo and all that. But also those were like the next videos playing where he was in some of the rap songs, videos, and why he's so over with the rappers. I think you wanted to say something about that.
Well, it's I had come across this, and of course I'd heard about the song Ric Flair Drip, and right. I'm not a big rap guy. I kind of keep some tabs musically on what's going on, but I typically don't really know what's going on. But how many times I came across different stories just over time about how rap guys love Ric Flair because, you know, he lived the life that all of them are kind of like putting forward in their songs, you know, the fucking, well, you know, jet plane riding, you know, limousine riding, jet plane flying, wheeling, dealing, kiss stealing, son of a guns. And, you know, Ric Flair, when he was living the high life, fucking spilt more booze in a year than most people could afford to buy in a lifetime, you know.
Woo! Jet flying, limousine riding,
You know what's funny, and Bobby?
With the bling.
Yeah, I got, the Rolexes. You know, he and Shawn Michaels got matching Rolexes for their retirement match that they did. They went out and got matching Rolexes. I just thought that was like one of the funniest things I'd ever heard. But, you know, so I've been reading up on Flair and like some of his stuff. And of course, Ric Flair is synonymous with one alcoholic beverage, and that's the kamikaze, right? And
you like that kamikaze, the Miller Lights, those two things. And beer of choice and kamikazes.
Now, normally when I hear about people who with, you know, expensive tastes and booze, it's always like you know, fucking 30-year-olds this and high-end bourbons that are $150 and fucking Flair's drinking Miller Lite and kamikazes. You know, if I was JJ, I would have been like, we can't afford for you to be seen drinking that shit right there.
Well, you know what I did last Sunday, and again, I think it was Wednesday, dude. It was Tuesday. I went out and got me some Miller High Life. I thought that's the champagne of beers.
That is, yeah.
You know, but I was celebrating being out of the hospital because this time last year I had been in a hospital.
Oh yeah.
And for that week there, and I was a nervous wreck. Honestly, I thought, man, what if this thing comes back, you know? And I was like, and so so the order day the 16th, 17th, 15th. So yeah, maybe again Friday. I don't know. Even one day, I know I got them last Sunday. I was like, fuck, this time last year after we was up there, I was like, I'm drinking this Miller High Life, man. And I'm a natural light guy. I'm looking at a fucking taste great, less filling light, a fine Pilsner beer right now, a mirror I have in my little room here. Just this cold beer came out of a bar in Baltimore back in the day. Mm-hmm. And my uncle had given it to me. But yeah, Flair drinking a kamikazes and buying them by the tray full. Like you said, probably spilt more liquor than some people spend on, you know, their drink, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there's again the Ric Flair drip, the dropping of drinks.
Yep.
And seeing a nature boy, this was in Fort Myers, Florida when I first started WCW. And of course I was thinking I've met him several times, different times throughout my career. But going home from a show one day, and there's the nature boy, the Bishop, and you know who the Bishop is, don't you?
Oh.
You can tell I'm smarting the fans up here.
Well, so the Bishop is little Ric Flair's nickname.
So he's out on the side of the road by the limo, the Miller Lite in one hand and a Bishop in the other hand, and honking. As people are honking going by, I was one of them. I honked too. I mean, I'm sure some of the boys were in the cars in front of me. Because like I said, we just had left the building, maybe 45 minutes to an hour down the road in between Fort Myers and Tampa, or you know, somewhere like that. And he's out there, you know, just letting it swing in the air there, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And he was known for that, of course.
Oh yeah, well.
Like some.
You know, if anybody who's listened to or listens to Tony Schiavone's podcast or did, you know, Ric Flair's dick comes up about every fifth story. I mean, it's, you know, just constantly like, oh yeah, it looks like a baby's arm holding an apple, you know. Oh shit!
And I guess he named that the Bishop way back when he was at the when he got sent off to the private school. You know, so I guess at a young age, like a 14 or 15, he had the like you said, the old skinned rabbit out there, if you will, and called it the Bishop. And then he also talked about how, you know, of course this wouldn't fly nowadays, but I guess his first wife, he'd walk around and rub it up against some of her girlfriend's shoulders and stuff at different times, depending on how much he had consumed. And I guess certain stewardesses, I guess, in the air have seen it, and you know, things like that you get in big trouble for nowadays. I guess if you pull your dick in a plane, you know, back to the airplane.
You know, that what they call that plane ride from hell. He was running around, nothing else but his robe on, and just letting his dick, you know, letting his dick fly free and
Yeah.
chasing down stewardesses and gotta be in jail now, Fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to cover real quick that it was after the plane wreck and he slimmed down. This is when he adopted the Nature Boy as his gimmick, and Buddy Rogers actually did a program with him and put him over so he could take the mantle going forward. And I discovered, because I was trying to figure out where the term Nature Boy came from, and it actually doesn't mean anything. They were trying to get something that seemed Tarzanish for Buddy Rogers, and that's what they came up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. It seemed like I'd heard something that it might have been something related to the Tarzan things, but then again, it was really nothing. I will say this. One of the funniest things I've seen, bless his heart, he's dead now, but the Nature Boy Buddy Landau, when I was in WCW, he came close to my hometown and was on a show, right? And Ric Flair had just turned 50. So this is, 21 years ago or so. And of course, Buddy gets the microphone. He puts me over. WCW assigned me a little thing to let me, for the local promoter I knew here, let me go to the show to do an autograph session, because I was with them and you have to get that approval.
Yeah.
Nature Boy Buddy puts me over. He says, man, right there, hometown hero. Really puts me over good, but he goes, and now to something more serious. and he says, there's three things in order to be a Nature Boy. And he said, he said something other. He goes, but I'll tell you, I think how old Buddy was at the time, but he said basically, a real Nature Boy like myself shouldn't have to wear a bra, and he buried Flair there, and he goes, and he should be under 50 years old, and he buried Flair there, and he said something else about being a real Nature Boy, and got heat, of course, to what he was trying to do.
Well, yeah.
He wasn't, just working the mic, just kind of pretty funny, because Flair really wasn't there to defend himself or anything, and was on top in WCW. Speaking of which, when he was 50, I told you he told Goldberg when he was wrestling. This was going around the locker room then again around the same time. So Goldberg picks him up for the jackhammer. I guess he's want to do the big jackhammer suplex. And on the way up, Flair says, "Just remember two things, brother." He goes, "I'm 50 years old and I love you." He was saying that on the way down, So he's putting Goldberg over even on the way down, But yeah, you get snapped up like that and big bump like that, 50 years old, I wouldn't want to be taking it at 50. Hell,
no.
I took it at 35, and that was enough for me.
Oh yeah. Well,
so.
me and Micah were talking last night, because I watched my grandson, and Micah came over and spent the night when he got done at work. And we were talking last night about some of the just harshest things, because he was telling me about when we lived in a town above Santa Cruz, him and his friend found this homemade wrestling ring by a barn. It was like hay bales with corner posts and ropes, okay? So Micah wisely decides to climb on top of the barn. He's probably 12, 13 at the time. Climb on top of the barn and fly off and do a leg drop.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? He is, oh no, he is, I literally felt my head go between my shoulders. It's just my whole spine compressed. I'm like, no shit. Then I told him, I said, there's a video clip out there of Mikey Whipwreck giving Bobby a stunner off the ropes. And then when I saw that, I looked at it and I thought, shit, how many teeth did Bobby lose? And how long was it before Mikey could walk again? God damn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he commented on that too.
No, I did, yeah, because I saw that. And I was just like,
spine,
oh God, I saw that. Bobby, I was just like, my God, because I'm pushing 50, and I think about just falling on my ass. I'd be out for a day or two,
Yeah.
And I see you guys doing all that. I was just like, Jesus Christ, no wonder Hulk Hogan has back surgery.
I wish I could have. Oh yeah. Dropping that leg drop, all those years. Think about that. 300, 320 pounds coming down every night, at least 5 nights a week, if not more. And sometimes twice in a match. Very rarely twice, but still sometimes twice in a match. That fucking compressed his spine big time, I'm sure, man. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's just jump back here to Flair. You brought up family issues
yes.
On here. There was one I wasn't aware of, but I knew this one, Dusty's cousin. Do you remember why you sent that one on the notes here when he first broke in. Do you remember what his name was going to be or he wanted to be?
Well, who he was, it just didn't catch on, was Ramblin' Ricky Rude. Or, I'm sorry, Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes.
Yep.
And he was Dusty Rhodes' cousin, quote unquote.
Yep.
And that didn't really take off. So I don't know if this next one was Rip Hawk's nephew, but I don't know if that was before or after the Dusty thing.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking that would have been after because he would have came into NWA at that point. But I don't recall that. But I do know the one that did catch on, of course, he was one of the Andersons, Arn Anderson's cousin. He was a part of the Anderson family, if you will, being from Minnesota, to type at Minnesota Record. I would say the Rip Hawks deal took place probably prior to the plane crash when he was doing matches with Rip Hawks, Weed Hansen, because he was one of them big guys, like you said, he's 300 pounds at that time.
Oh, he's
so
almost
introduced him.
he's almost unrecognizable when you see a photograph of him at that weight range.
Well, he was working out with Patera too in the weight room at one before he went down to the Carolinas. He had that big, strong muscular physique, and in his book even says he hadn't done steroids, okay, when he was working out Patera up to this. I think he mentioned like 3 times in his life he had done them. And the first time he had done them, he was eating 2 to 5 Whoppers a day and 1 to 2 gallons of milk a day, because that's what Patera was doing. But he noticed that Patera was getting bigger and stronger and still was retaining his muscularity. And that was kind of his first introduction. He said he was just getting bloated and fatter, eating that kind of stuff. They were roommates, and he said, and of course drinking probably Miller Lite. But anyway, he said he was just getting bigger and bloated and fatter. And that was when Patera, I guess was, not to put the heat on Patera, but one of the people that introduced him to steroids back then. And he mentioned 3 different times he used them. And I think it was like 74, 75 maybe, and then again after the plane crash in 76 and 78 he mentioned using something, and he just gave a little briefing of it, as far as he didn't put steroid abuse down or anything like that. He just said that he had used them a few times throughout his career at that point when that book came out. So anyway,
but it's just a very different look. And, another thing I need to address this, and I know it's common knowledge, but it's still one of those things. We forget, or sometimes it's not brought up, that he was a Minneapolis guy and a Gagne guy originally. Yeah, we talked about that class that was all training together back in the day. Him and Patera and Greg Gagne and all them guys, Sheiky Baby and all of them in that class. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, where do you want to jump to next, brother? Let's see here.
Well, let's talk about his titles real quick, okay?
Okay. Well, being a professor, I know you know about his titles.
Yeah.
I know there's 16-time world champion, right? 16-time. Let me emphasize that, Jeremy.
Well, I broke out my abacus last night, and I came up with 18. 18-time world champion. Okay,
now here we may differ. I went with just I had heard some say 21, 25, 16. I hadn't heard 18. I'm going to let you back that up. I do want to point out two titles times that he wanted, I wanted to bring up. And one was the first title he won on September 17th. This is NWA World Heavyweight titles. September 17th, 1981, when he went over on Dusty. I think that took place in Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. And then the second time he won it, we talked about it last week, was in Starrcade, November 24th, 1983, over Harley Race, and Gene Kiniski was a special referee. I just wanted to mention those two to get us started. And I'm sticking to the 16. And then please tell me why you're going with the 18. And also we talked about some phantom changes too. Just maybe mention that to the fans in case.
Sure. And Bobby, it's, if you want to say there was only 16 title reigns, you can be wrong if you want to. It's not, it's not a thing, it's not a big deal.
I might not always be right, but I'm never wrong.
Exactly.
How about that?
Exactly. So when it comes to world title reigns, here's what I've got. I've got 7-time NWA champion, 7-time WCW champion, so 14, 2-time WWF champion, there's your 16.
Yes, sir.
And then 2-time WCW International Heavyweight World Champion. Now, I can see where somebody might want to quibble over that one. That was a bullshit title, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was the replacement title for the NWA World title in WCW when they left. So it actually carries the lineage of the NWA title at that point until it's unified with the WCW title. So that's 2 legitimate wins. Now, there are a number of phantom changes and one night onlys and then win backs that we don't need to get into, because there's like Carlos Colon. Was it Inoki or somebody had one in there as well? There was a title change in Korea that was like a one time and then reversed the next day. There's a bunch of those, and I'm sure that's how you get
over New Zealand.
Yeah, and I'm sure those are how you get to 25. But by my math,
you're probably right.
Yeah, by my math, according to my abacus right here, we're at 18.
Okay, well, see, I did 1 knot, and then 1 knot equals 2 knots, and 2 knots, times 7 knots equals 14, and then 2 knot added that equals 16. So I was doing the knot system,
Oh, I
wasn't using abacus.
You were using.
I was using Jethro's.
I was going to say you're using the Jethro Bodine method.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
1 knot and 1 knot, yeah. Of course, I'm a double agent, secret spy, international playboy, too. That's why I've slept with over 10,000 women, and I can add 7 and 7 and 2 and still get 16. Because, 10,000 women, that's at least 4 or 5 a day that the Nature Boy had, right? Snow Wilt Chamberlain at 20,000, Warren Beatty at 15,000, but another great coxman, the Nature Boy Ric Flair at 10,000. Do you believe that?
I bet the numbers.
The great coxman is at 10,000.
Yeah, well, let's say he's on the road 280 days a year.
Okay.
Right abouts, wouldn't you think? Okay. So let's say 280 days.
Wait a minute. You just now asked me to fucking add 7 and 7 and 2 and get 16 and add your other 2 in there to get 18 doing a knot system. Now you're talking about fucking adding 280 days a year.
Yeah.
Times 5 women a day, or a minimum of 3, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 in the evening time.
Yep.
I don't know.
Now, does he count the same girl twice if it was at 2 different times a day?
No.
What do your numbers do if it's a threesome, but you only actually bang one of them? Is that 1 or 2?
Ooh, I guess you could say I fucked them both.
I'd count it as 2.
Yeah, I'd count it as 2 probably.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know. I've never been in that situation.
It's still a threesome, right?
Yeah.
So we got 280 days a year. How many years was Ric Flair on the road, do you think?
Oh, fuck. Easily, what we say 76 on from there. Take it even from there. Just 76 through 96 is 20. He did the match with Sean.
That was 2006, right?
Yeah, so there's 30. Yeah, 35 years probably.
Okay, 35.
35. Say 35.
Okay, so even at 35 years, at 280 days a year, that alone gets you to 9,800.
There you go.
Yeah, so 10,000.
And how many days back in NWA though? They were on the road over 300 days a year. So you do that, you got to levy it out a little bit. With early on, he was gone, 350, and then later on with WWF, there towards the latter part of it, you drop that down to say to 250 maybe, or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah. So totally doable.
That's good. 10,000 totally doable.
Yeah. And not even like, that's just 1 a day. And Ric Flair, the way he spent money picking up a chick at a bar is not going to be that hard, because if they're in there the first place, they're either a ring rat or they're there for a sales conference. So,
they're lining up, man.
Yeah.
They're lining up the hotel door, So, and I understand he has some quality babes too. So, wasn't just any average rat. He's getting some prime grade A there, But yeah, we'll go up the 18-time world champion there, just so we're not disputing it here. Which next we should talk about, since you brought this up earlier about the Rolex watch and stuff. He's styling and profiling, baby, and it's hard to keep these $600 gator shoes to the ground. One time he told you. So I love the one he'd get in the ring on the old TV that you could from very rarely when he talked on the on TBS, when he actually had a TV match on there, you could hear him in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd say, "Sit down, fat boy."
Yeah.
He said, to sit down, fat boy. And once we got on, he said, "My shoes costs more than your house, fat boy.
Yeah.
And it's paying the audience to be some heavyset guy, and then to have a good-looking chick beside him, too. You knew it had to be his fucking sister. You was hoping, because Flair was going to bang her one way or the other. There's that picture, that meme that's going around, it's Ric Flair on the phone in a hotel room says, no, you cannot talk to your wife. But he said from 18 to 28, no boyfriends, no husbands. We'll be at the Marriott in Baltimore tonight, room 213 or whatever it was, man. He just put it out there where they're going to be at, and they had people show up. He just told Kevin Hart the other day, 18 to 28 at the Philly Marriott. He just killed it, man. He'd bring them up there. But that brings us to, he had the Rolex, he had the clothes. He was living the style, even though, what'd you say, it wasn't really anything. The Nature Boy was delivering, leading that life, man. He was Ric Flair in and out of the ring.
Yeah.
Tune it up a little bit in the ring and keep it where he's at outside the ring. I mean, that's just the way he was.
Oh, yeah. Well, I came across a number somewhere. It didn't say what year, but there was a year where he out of pocket $60,000 on limos alone for him and the rest of the Horsemen. Out of pocket. So,
yeah.
I imagine you can write some of that off, but not all of it. But, so I mean, that's a shit ton of money just throwing that. Now, then you look at I bet you his average bar tab must have been, even back then, $1,500 a night, easily. Because, you figure
probably.
you're buying trays of booze at a go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. He bought a trays. Jim Ross talks about being like 50 shots and two waitresses bringing them out at a time, like 100 shots at a time. For the little club they was at, like somewhere in St. Louis or Kansas City or wherever. Mm-hmm. And then JJ was talking about they was doing out west there, Phoenix and Denver and some of those towns, but in Vegas. So he was out there in that area. They was flying back to Vegas every night, and they was staying on the top floor. And he said Flair had 4 and 5 women in the room every night. And he even told Kevin Hart the other day, he very seldom had to, but he did, not for himself, but for the crew. He did pay for some hookers and strippers and things to show up to make the party a little more lively.
Well, yeah.
So, I think you do count. You do count the twosomes and, the threesomes and the foursomes and the moresomes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To get to that number. Because he's larger than life figure, man. We know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you look, he had custom shoes on. Usually had a brand new watch when you saw him. I think when you go back and look, I think you only see him wear the same watch like maybe 3-4 times. But I mean, dude is just, layered in it. Now, here's where I get confused though, because we talk about custom suits and then dude's wearing Sansa belt pants half the time you see him. And those were $30 a pair,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's just, going there and rip them off right away anyway.
Well, that's what I figured. So, he's trying to not slow himself down, I assume.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was weird, like the Sansa belts. Just like, what a very 1970s lounge act fucking pair of pants you got there. Now, here's something I came across, Bobby, and I'm going to need people to educate me on this one because I didn't look into it any further than just finding the reference. Apparently, when Ric Flair wore red trunks, he lost more than he won.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I wasn't sure about that. I don't know for sure. He had so many different outfits anyway with the robes. Back up there to the robes, we need to bring up. We brought this up way back when Tex was still around with us. Olivia Walker, correct?
Yes.
Johnny Walker, Mr. Wrestling 2. His wife, right? Is that who it was that made those robes for him?
I'm pretty sure that's who it was, yeah.
Because we was doing some unsung heroes. I think that's on our YouTube page, on YouTube channel over at tinyurl.com/BBBB video, or it's just Bell to Bell Blaze on there. They're still up, the ones that Tech's done, and I know Jeremy and I are in a process of possibly working on a new one. But I think we've done the unsung heroes, and we brought up several people from behind the scenes, and we brought up Olivia Walker as one of them because she was such a seamstress, and she made all Rick robes for him. So Anyway, just come to mind when you was talking about the robes and the clothes.
Well, and the robes.
And he paid people like George South. He paid him like, $100, $150 just to carry the robes and make sure they got to the next building, So he's doing that stuff. I'm sure he was a big tipper too. I'm sure he, gave tips. I know he paid the undertalent what he did with TV. I know he paid them extra too, out of pocket,
Yeah.
Guys to make them look good. And that's just good business to me. That's the karma part, right there. That's good for business there.
Well,
Here's an extra 100 for making me look good,
Yeah, you take care of the
people.
Did he really
wear? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, you take care of the people who make the rest of everything go well,
Absolutely, for sure. So the question this week will be this: did he really lose more matches when he wore red? I do not know that answer.
Yeah, if somebody has some info on that, let me know, because I found that interesting. I just didn't take any further time to really look into it. I just came across it as a reference here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So, well, hold on. I got to tell this story real quick here, just because it popped into my mind, because you could probably change it and make it about Flair. But Frank Sinatra liked to tip everybody $100 for everything. You brought his car around, you got $100, right? You brought him drinks, you got $100. Mm-hmm. So one night they're leaving Cal Neva, I think, is where they were leaving in Vegas, and he asked the kid, bringing the car around, he's, "Hey, has anybody ever tipped you $100 before?" And the kid goes, "Well, why do you ask?" He goes, "Well, I want to make sure that Frank Sinatra gives you the biggest tip you ever got." And he goes, "Well, yeah." He goes, "I've been tipped $100 before." So fucking Frank hands him $200. He goes, "Hey, kid, let me ask you, who was it that tipped you the $100? He goes, "It was you yesterday, Mr. Sinatra."
Yeah, there you go, man. That's the shoot right there. Yep. I guarantee it. Yeah, Flair probably did the same thing,
Oh, I'm sure it happened. Yeah. So Bobby, I guess those robes ran $5,000 to $10,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that? Oh, Jesus Christ.
That sounds about right. I think he had one that was a $20,000 robe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he had more than one, but I know he had at least one, according to his book. I'm drawing a blank on this book, to be honest with you. I had it in paperback, and I looked on my shelf. I apparently loaned it to someone, didn't get it back, and it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. Or it's in a box somewhere. But anyway, it was his first book that he came out with, maybe in around 2006 or so. I can't remember. But I think he had a $20,000 robe in there somewhere, Jeremy.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
That's
so, yeah. And we had his mic work, man. He just had the smoothness of his mic works. I don't think he was so much the interviews as he just come out and cut promos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this little thing I saw of Kevin Hart, and I'm sure there's other things. I saw another one on there on his recovery with his recent health scare. He done Atlanta Today. There's like 3 or 4 outtakes where he's been in Atlanta on the local news there as a spotlight the show Southern Living or whatever it is, where he lives in Atlanta. And where it's a sit down, where it's an interview type thing, like, how you doing, how's your health, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, throughout his wrestling career, because it's kind of post, that's kind of more recent here in the last couple of years. But he done the promos, man. They just held the microphone out there, be a Gordon or whoever, and he done the rest. He done the rest.
Yeah, and when he was younger, I definitely liked his more drawn in. Like his more like calm, but you could tell he's getting ready to whip your ass before he started getting into the flinging his jacket on the ground and fucking acting all goofy and over the top. Because as
you could see him building up for that though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, you could. But as he got older, he got a little closer to look like he was going to have a heart attack every time there's a microphone around him. And it wasn't as compelling as when he'd draw in a little bit and he'd, very strong voice, but very, very smooth, very even, very, I'm going to, and then, and then he'd look at the crowd, shut up, fat boy, or I'm going to fuck your mama, stuff like that. But yeah, and then he had so many catchphrases that were just like fun and cool ones in and out of the ring too. Like now we go to school, like right before the figure 4. Just all that stuff he'd do, then also kind of a lost talent, because you see guys now when they start talking about their opponents and they call them bitches and cowards and blah, 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 blah. But back in these days, you got a guy like Ric Flair up there. He'd be like, "Hey, Dusty Rhodes, you're a great wrestler. You can beat everybody you're in the ring with except me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
great.
I watched one of him and Piper going out actually, and they went back and forth, and he was doing an escape. He was doing in-ring wrestling. It's up there on YouTube for you to, for our fans to listen or go watch rather. But yeah, he's putting Piper over, before their build up for a match. It's just one of those things that, like you said, instead of tearing the guy down, you build them up. That way, when you do win, you beat someone.
Yeah.
And you put on here, putting his opponents over, and that's, he done that. He was good at, if he's going to wrestle someone, he come on there, he'd make the TV guys look good. It was well known that he would do that with, like, he come in George South or wherever Brad, whoever it was, they're making him look good. But he's not over there burying them guys on TV. But he's also, because that's just a TV match, he's not burying who's coming up in the Omni this coming, Sunday. He's not burying that opponent. He's building them up. So when you see the match, win, lose, or draw, he's actually wrestled someone, and also I've heard him say about this. I think you got this somewhere else on here. The figure 4 leg lock. Now we go to school.
Yeah.
How many matches did he win with that? How many matches did he lose? Because of that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
I'm sure one of our fans do know that. I had a question for you here on this next deal. Ric Flair, the Lucy Van Pelt of pro wrestling. I had a question mark with that. I know who Lucy Van Pelt is, but then you have Sting kept falling for it. So I'm like, is that one or two different things? Because I'm thinking like, is she pulling a football out from underneath Charlie Brown's when he goes to punt it, or what's the reference for this Lucy Van Pelt of pro wrestling? You lost me on that.
All right, so it was 2 or 3 different times that Ric Flair, for one reason or another, ended up, lulling Sting into the 4 Horsemen, only to then get turned on and beat the shit out of in a match or something like a tag match. And it was, every time I saw that as a kid, all I could think of is like Lucy with the football and Charlie Brown taking a run at it and then her jerking it away.
I thought that what your reference was, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, because, it really, so as I understand it, Ric Flair is the guy, like they said, Lex Luger's the next big thing. And then Ric Flair's like, except I think it should be this kid Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's the one who picked, worked with, and programmed Sting to get him from, what was essentially, Eddie Gilbert's flunky, to the superstar of WCW.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, one of the ways he did that was he gave the same Sting as the stupidest son of a bitch in wrestling story 3 times in a row. Where, I'm gonna stick this football out here, but you're just gonna pull away. No, I'm not. It'll be okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I saw them wrestle live in Huntington Civic Center. It was the main event was Sting and Flair, and honestly, they went about 20-25 minutes. But I to this day I couldn't tell you who won, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
They put on a clinic. You know what I'm saying? Flair was up there doing his thing. Back in those days, used to block off half the Civic Center there. Charleston, they could sell it out usually, but Huntington, smaller town, more of a tri-state area. I don't think, other than WWF, eventually they opened the entire Civic Center up, but NWA, when they came, they would only open half of it up. At the first or second time they came, they probably sold it out, but the latter years, I'm saying like 86, 87, 88, when they after they had been coming here for a while, they would do about half of that, maybe 4,000 people, 3,000 to 4,000 people, and block off half of it. But yeah, they used to see some good NWA shows coming in this area. But yeah, him and Sting, to see them for the first time against each other live was really good, and it was exciting. Like I said, I couldn't tell you who went over and didn't care. It was just a hell of a good match, And that's probably about 85 or 86, I would imagine, when I saw that match. So, but I saw that, and you put that on there, and it's funny. Well, I'm going to read this. We're moving on here. I'm going to read this out because you love with the wording of things here, and I really appreciate that. You put, walked away from a second plane wreck.
Yes. So
we kind of know about if you don't know what we're talking about at home, by saying walked away from a second plane wreck. The professor and I will kindly take you through this, and that is the what error there, Professor.
I am specifically talking about the Jim Herd era of WCW.
Yes.
Now, Ric Flair had to have been, 40, maybe 45 at the
I know oldest. It was, 98 he was 50. So go back about 88 he'd been 40. So he'd been like 42, about 43-ish.
Yeah, 42, 43. So older.
When he walked away.
Yeah. Older, but younger than all the stars in the WWF now are. But Jim Herd felt that Ric Flair was old-fashioned and too old, wanted him to cut his hair off, pierce his ear, and go by the name Spartacus. How any of those things go together, you fucking got me. So they were going to put him in a Roman slave outfit or something. And I got to stop myself. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, apparently Kevin Sullivan said, let's just change Mickey Mantle number 2 or something like that,
Yeah.
And Jim Herd told him, he said, well, you don't know anything about the business. And like this fucking sit there telling Flair, you're going to do this one I like you to do, or I want you to do, we're going to, 1960 movie reference from, Kirk Douglas, I guess, because he's an old bastard, doing there, or Mike, that's Kirk? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And then, but then Kevin speaks up and he's still telling let's just change we might as well change Mickey Mantle's number too, and that's the reference. And he tells him, you know anything about the wrestling business. Well, you might know a lot about the Pizza Hut business. I don't know, but I think if you come down to it, Kevin Sullivan probably knows a thing or two about the wrestling business, But yeah, that's just one of his great ideas. And of course, if you want to hear someone browbeat Jim Herd, just listen to fucking Corny.
Oh yeah,
Corny goes off on a guy all the damn time, man.
Oh,
but
god damn.
So that brought him to a jump to the World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
The current WWE, and the one thing I liked about this was two things actually that I heard him say. Vince didn't offer contracts. He was known for that, but he just told him, "Hey, you'll make more money than you ever have here," and it was a handshake deal, and he did. And back at that time, he said it was a great jump because he got to be managed by Bobby Heenan. We've talked about greatest manager of all time, right there, Bobby the Brain Heenan. But he also got to have a match with Hogan and Savage and Brett that he never, at that point in the foreseeable future, he wasn't going to be able to have if he stayed there.
Right.
And also and that was on, work program with those guys. And then he got to work house shows with The Undertaker. He said the only thing disappointing about making that jump was when he was going, Arn and Tully were leaving, during that same time. They had already come back. Those come back to Atlanta. Arn stayed. Tully did his deal, but Flair, made a big jump to the WWF as the real world heavyweight champion. I thought that was so cool, man. When he debuted on there, that was pretty damn hot, man. I think I was in Canada working. Made my first tour up there in 91. Is that the year he jumped, 91? Is that right?
You know what? I don't know for sure, but that sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was up for the summer of 91, and I know he'd been up there. He might have been up there a little bit before that. I'm just saying, I just recall that, it was a big deal in the wrestling business, and that's, a big deal. So,
and I'm
glad he did.
There's a thing here that kind of cracks me up too. So Jim Herd backs them into a corner, and they hit at this point where it's untenable. There's no going forward. Ric Flair is the world champion with this big, expensive goddamn belt. And back then, when you were champ, you put a bond down for the title belt.
Yeah. Yes.
So
correct.
Ric Flair had $25,000 set down for this, and Jim Herd refused to pay him. First off, that's where the fuck do you get off not paying somebody back their own fucking money? But okay, right. So Flair jumps with the title belt, and for a couple weeks there, you saw the NWA World Championship on WWF TV.
Absolutely, that was it, man. That was the whole deal right there. That was good. That was a good dig. Fuck you. Here you go. Yeah, that was a bond I think you put up. back in the day you had to put up. I thought it was 30,000. I know it's 25. I wasn't sure what it was. I knew it was a high price you had to put down for that belt.
Yeah.
When you carried it around, security or what have you. But yeah, Flair, man, he's the man. That's one of his catchphrases, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and hell, he went up there and was having 5-star matches with people. Bobby Heenan being his manager. I mean, that's fucking top talent right there, man. I'll tell you this, I'm not keep trying to put this thing over about Kevin Hart, because it's basically an interview and some ice water, and it's kind of comedy, of course. But he asked Flair, of course, Kevin Hart's a good friend with The Rock. He asked Flair about what he thought about The Rock, because Flair really put The Rock over. So, he's the entertainment part of talent. He thought he could sing and he could play musical instruments and this and that, let alone, wrestle in promos and movies and stuff. And Kevin Hart's kind of burying him, so I'm not giving the whole thing away, just so you know. But he said, but what would have happened if you two in your prime? And Flair said, in my prime, if there was a guy like The Rock, they couldn't have built buildings big enough to hold the crowds we would have drawn. And I can believe that.
Yeah.
Because, he was doing sellouts back in the day. And then you look with the Attitude Era and The Rock, in that era. I mean, fuck. I don't know how great of a match it would have been, but I guarantee it'd have been sold out every time and every place, I don't think it would have been a bad match at all. Not with Ric Flair out there,
Well, no.
Said he make the broomstick look good.
Yeah, I was going to say, the thing about Ric Flair is they say that he could wrestle a broomstick in a 3-star match. But, of course, just putting Ric Flair in a match guarantees you 3 stars. So even if so even if it's almost a dud at that point, doesn't matter. Ric Flair will still do his fucking part. And it's true. I mean, you watch him, especially when you're a little more in the know and you know when to watch for them speaking in the ring and, hey, here's what's coming next, and you understand that Flair is calling the match, and now you can kind of pick your spots and kind of see.
Heel leads the match. He knows, he knows when he's going to take his bumps and this and that and do he knows what he wants to do. He knows when to bring the crowd up, bring the crowd down.
Yeah.
So. And
he was good at it. He was great at, like we were talking last week, like if you program the show, why are the matches in this order? Ric Flair did that in the individual match. Okay, we'll build up. Okay, everybody take a fucking breath now. Okay, here we go.
Oh yeah. I had, of all the people I got the pleasure of meeting, I got to meet, one of my all-time favorites when I met Terry Funk and spoke with him and got to see him, for the couple weeks he was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Of course, I'd met Flair before that. I'd been a fan of Ric Flair, always a big fan of his. I don't know. Some people may say arguably. I don't say. I think he was the greatest NWA World Champion of all time. That's just my opinion. As far as the NWA title goes, he was the greatest champion. But I didn't get the rest of those two, and that's there's no regrets or anything, nothing like that. But I wish I'd have got to have a match with Terry Funk at some point in my career, and I'd have loved to have a match. I come close a couple of times just at those TVs, thinking, okay, we're in Disney or Universal. Your name can be up there if any guy. And I was getting a bigger push in the worldwide. The Sunday come out here on Sunday nights. The worldwide showed anywhere at any time. It was here in our local time was like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. But anyway, I was up there with some of the top guys on those programs and get a good solid 50-50 match. It wasn't like a Saturday night TV. Even though those were some good matches, but the matches for Universal, they were worldwide. So they put 2 talented people together, and very, very seldom did they have a squash, one at where I was out on the card saying that. I'd have loved to have been in the ring with Ric Flair though, and just listen to me, kid, and just go. Because I'd have been there. I know the spots, and I'd have been, I'd have loved to have that pleasure. But I did speak to him, several times. I told you about one of the first I met him was the night I met Piper and was going to wrestle Piper, and Piper brought him into the back area there, and he had an idea because him and Piper was doing their feud up there in WWF, and they was doing a chair match, and Piper said, this chair is for Flair, and he come in the back, and I did my little impersonation of of the Nature Boy, and finished it up with the woo. And he goes, that's pretty good, kid. But Ric Flair, put his hand on my shoulder, and then I was just doing TV then, but then at WCW, saw him many, many times especially on the Monday Nitros, and that would be 60 and 70 guys at those, Jeremy, be in the back of any arena, be it Knoxville or San Bernardino or at the pay-per-view up in Detroit at the Palace or wherever. And hell, they don't use, 12 or 15 guys for the show, you know what I'm saying? But you'd have to go there, be there at a certain time. And then, your name more likely wasn't going to be on a board at Nitro unless, but they had to have you there, and you got paid for it. And then the next day was TV, of course. And he would come to some of the TVs on the Saturday nights, but not many of those at that point when I was there. But he was always real nice, very professional, of course. Always dressed, to the nines that we discussed.
Yep.
I think I told you before, I remember in Sarasota, Florida, it's the only time one of my buddies had lived in Tampa, and I was meeting him at lunch. I stayed all night with him instead of getting a hotel, one of my old training partners, and I told him to come down to the building the next day. He knew several people, and I said, just talk to Arn or someone, or Terry, and I knew he knew Terry Taylor. So anyway, I said, come down to the building, whatever, later on. And we were in Sarasota, so we had lunch. I went down there, but Flair walks in, and it's the only time I ever saw him without a suit and tie on, you know what I'm saying, other than his wrestling gear, of course. But he had on the baggy pants and the heavy sweatshirt, and apparently just come in from the gym, you know what I'm saying. It was just don't know if he was running late because it was earlier in the day. I don't know if he was running early, just stopping by. I don't recall him wrestling on that. I know it was a TV, but He may have been down there just vacationing. I really don't know. You know what I'm saying? He may have been off for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But he did stop by the building. It was the only time I ever saw the man not dressed to the nines. You know what I'm saying? But, again, he's a very professional guy, and I'd love to have the opportunity to wrestle with him. But I did get to meet him, and that was a great pleasure. And here we are doing a show on him. He said, how many O's are in Wooooo? He says he knows. How many do you think?
I believe the trademark has 3 or 4.
He said 5.
That's so 5. Okay.
Yeah, that's what he said. 5.
I know it doesn't have an H. It's WOOOOO.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I was shocked to find out that it doesn't have an H, but I was more shocked to find out that the fucking thing is trademarked to begin with. That he owns the trademark to that, and he owns the trademark to the name The Man, which.
Yes, we found that out a couple years ago.
Yeah, it caused a little problem for Becky Lynch, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, man, I tell you, we probably need to finish this up. I know we're going on and on and on about Flair here, but that was our man. I think we ought to finish with one more thing you asked me. The Shawn Michaels match. He says, I'm going to answer a question here that you got. The Shawn Michaels match, okay. You see Shawn Michaels mouthed the words, hell, he might have been yelling at that audience. I don't know, but he mouthed them, I love you and I'm sorry. Gives him a super kick. The question to me is, did he tarnish his legacy by hanging around too long? I'll tell you what I think. No.
Okay.
And he said, now, I don't believe this to be true, even though he said on that little dry your cold balls off, your coldest balls episode, he said that he was really proud of his match with Shawn Michaels at the age of 59. Then you're telling me he's out here getting a Rolex watch that matches him. Then a couple of weeks ago when we started this territory, he said that, there's no doubt about it now that Shawn Michaels is the greatest, word, whatever, of all time in his whatever. But I don't think that was his greatest match by any means. But I don't think he overextended his time or tarnished his legacy because he's so well known and over, like you said, these rappers that were young guys growing up wanting to do something with their life, and they saw the bling with Flair, the ladies, the limousines, they saw his lifestyle. That brought him back into the fold. Vince picking him up and keeping him around, that kept him in the fold. Now the most proudest thing he can be proud of right now is at this point maybe just be Charlotte's father. You know what I'm saying? he can claim that legacy right there. His daughter is a great female wrestler, you know, and I'm going to use the word performer. She's tremendous, you know, looks great, wrestles great, everything. And why not genes like that? You know what I'm saying? So I think if he tries to do anything else wrestling wise, which I think someone said he made an appearance on Raw or something a couple weeks ago, just an appearance thing. I don't know if he needs to be doing any of that stuff.
How about his time? How about his time at TNA?
Yeah, that may have been too much right there. Okay. I give you, that wasn't a good place for him to be at. And still trying to do some of those matches he was trying to do. But I just don't. I think there's things that have happened like that at that point was tarnishing his reputation by hanging on too long, or his legacy, as you put it. But I think overall, no, because of the internet, you know, YouTube, and then like I said, Ben's keeping around, and now with his daughter out there, that just at least keeps the name Flair going, you know. But as far as with him, I think he's going to, you know, still do these little appearances. I've seen him on, just if you YouTube him, on, like I said, with Kevin Hart. He just done Stone Cold. He's been on that. You know, he's been on some popular podcasts. He had his own there for a while. So, you know, I think he's still, to me, Ric Flair's still over. You know, I don't think he's tarnished his reputation or his legacy in any way, other than, like you said, there's been blotches here or there maybe. But overall, no. That's my answer.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly fair. Let's see. Did I have anything else? No, I mean, you know, of course, we should probably address real quick that when Ric Flair was born, his parents were actually told he died and he was stolen and sold to an orphanage. And it was a huge, I believe it was in Tennessee, and it's a huge, huge story where they'd been doing that for years and years and years. So they're not even 100% sure who his birth parents were. I came across that a couple years ago when reading about him, and I'm just like stunned because I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew he was adopted, but I didn't know it till just now when you was talking about part of a kidnapping adoption ring.
Yeah, there was a whole thing in Tennessee where they would tell the parents that, your kid's dead, sell it to this orphanage, and then adopt him out. So the Flair family basically adopted a stolen Ric Flair, you know. Yeah, I mean, it was just like one of the craziest things I'd ever come across, and I actually meant to deal with it towards the top, but I didn't really. Was there anything else I wanted to hit? We got the.
Well, we talked about the man, Slick Rick, Dirtiest Player in the game, the Nate, 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. Woo! But the professor says otherwise.
18.
Okay, just wanted you to get that in there, man. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we're about winding down here. I know we could go over, NWA. You could go over all of you. Got a list to all of his title belts. Who he had tag team belts with, and this and that. But anyway, I don't know where we're going to go next week in this podcast. We can select a guest. I've got that on the back burner. We had a couple other ideas on territories where we may go next. So I'm not going to give anything away because I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to discuss it here in just a few minutes. We get off the air. Mm-hmm. With that said, Jeremy, I want to sign off by just saying, man, I'm glad that we had this podcast going this time last year, just recovering from being in a hospital. I'm thankful for my health, and I'm going to try my best, and I hope everyone out there that's listening to this podcast, please, social distance yourself, wash your hands and wear your mask. And please tell a friend about this podcast. Professor and I have been, the numbers have been changing just a little bit, and we'd like you to please, if you like this podcast, go and leave us a review, whether it be on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or Anchor. Just please, and then also just tell a friend about it, man. Share it on social media. Find Jeremy at the Geekcast. Find me at Bobby Blaze 744, or find the Bell Blaze on Twitter or on Facebook. And Jeremy takes care of those accounts, and I do see some activity over there on that. So thank you guys for listening. Proud to be a pro wrestling fan, and I'm proud of this podcast. So share it, please. Thank you.
Yeah, those were all great points. Please do. Happy birthday, Betty White, once again. If I get this question from time to time, if I were to share any podcasting or interview specific tips to anybody, here are my two things I would say. If you're doing an interview show, keep your mouth shut and your ears open. Follow up questions, and when you're editing your show, get rid of dead air. Those are my main tips as far as where you host your show. I have no opinion. So that is going to do it. So for the late Tex Johnson, the early Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and the usually on time Bobby Blaze, bye-bye, everybody.